Yes, guys, and welcome to another episode of the Cannon Podcast. We are back again. It is me and Bhavs, and Alex has a cough, cold, one of the above. He is going to be back very soon. But yeah, let's just get right into it. I think there's a lot to talk about in terms of the game that just happened. Tons of news that we'll get a breakdown for. So if you did want to have a really quick synopsis of what we'll go over, we'll break down the game for a little bit. As Babs would say, go and talk about some bips and bobs, about some of the match, some highlights, go through some of the tactics, and then we will end because there's been a flurry of transfer news. Arsenal have been busy. Today has been the day of confirmations, as we are recording on Tuesday, it seems. So we will address that kind of at the end. But to get into it, mate, okay, Villa, there's a lot to talk about here, personally. I saw the timeline reaction. I had a little bit late. Unfortunately, I am all busy with my wedding. So I couldn't watch it live. And so I just got to watch it at peace, knowing the score. And that is such a different experience, mate, just in general. When you're talking about just watching the game with the pressure of live, like kind of commentary. Look, we're nerds, so we look to watch it back. And of course, we try to do it for you guys, the listeners, so that we can be educated on this post match review. But I feel like sometimes when you do get a chance to do that, a lot of narratives that maybe you'll see online aren't in fact something maybe that you'd have a conclusion to. I'm sure we're going to get a section on Thomas Partey specifically. I mean, he was one of the ones where I felt online the match painted a very different picture of him compared to when I watched it specifically with a little bit more time removed. But before we get in, I'm going to ask you really, really quickly, what did you feel about the lineup? Clearly, that comes out. There is going to be a change. So, how did you feel about seeing the lineup, the timber, the selection in terms of Zinchenko, the selection in terms of maybe Martinelli? I didn't think that was a surprise, but I mean, it is a debate within the fan base. So, what did you make of the lineup when you first saw it?
It was close enough to what I was asking for. The only player I would have maybe changed was Jorginho for Partey, and that's something I said on my channel before the game because I thought I wanted a bit more control on the ball and security. But apart from that, Timber coming in was exactly what I wanted, and to see Mikel start that was nice as well. Because look, we have seen Mikel in the past have a bit of a habit of not changing a winning formula, even though we know it needs to be changed. So now we're seeing him throw in Timber, which is like an obvious change every Arsenal fan would have made. I think it just shows that he's got the trust in the squad now to go, look, I can throw players in at whatever time they need to for different games. Because there'll be games Zinchenko will suit as well, and he'll start those games on top of that as well. So, yeah, for me, the lineup was perfectly fine. And the performance itself, it was different to last year. Last year we went to Villa Park and made more chances and were the better side, yet lost. This time around, it's a more equal fair. We got very lucky at times. The Watkins chance in the first half was fortunate. But, sometimes you need that luck, especially if, you look at Man City's game against Chelsea, where Chelsea missed a lot of chances and Man City kind of took their ones there as well. So that's how it is sometimes in these big games, where sometimes you'll miss chances. These are good sides, they'll cause you issues, and then it's a matter of being potent and clinical. So thankfully, Leo came off the bench and scored a lovely goal, and we'll talk about his celebration as well. But yeah, I think it was a solid victory, and it's a bit of a statement as well. Villa Park, their first game there of the season, is a Champions League side. They've spent a lot of money this summer as well. They've got Unai Emery, and all the debates of Emery versus Arteta, who's the better manager. Mikel goes there, gets a 2-0 victory and a clean sheet, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really strange thing for me, mate, because we're talking about a good team, a team that arguably people have propped up as potentially winning the transfer window, along with West Ham and maybe Brighton. Um, it's kind of a case for me where I feel as though that people are potentially being disingenuous to what we have to face, and I think we might be facing this question, by the way, every game. There will not be a game that we can rest because of just what we're facing in Man City. In terms of just the absolute robotic nature, there is this almost this hunt that if Arsenal are not 3-0 up inside 30 minutes, it's poor. And I do feel that that's going to be some of the things that we're going to be fighting against. I think Villa did a brilliant job. And I think Emery also at the same time gave us a lot more respect than he did in previous games. Maybe we can talk about how deep their lines were for me. I don't think that their press was as intense as it was in previous iterations that we've seen when they have faced us last season. And, as far as the lineup went, I was happy to see it. I'm not going to lie. I think it was quite defensive. I mean, when you start to look at that lineup, you have Yuri and Timber, Declan Rice, Partey, Odegaard. Like, this is what I think people would have described as our best lineup last season had Timber not been injured. This lineup, had we faced Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, this is the lineup that people would have predicted or wanted to have seen. And There was a couple things that I saw. Look, I don't think our eights had the best of games. I don't think Martin Odegaard had a great game. I thought that he did okay in terms of knitting things together, but I mean, he missed almost three clear-cut cutbacks himself. Declan Rice, another one who I thought didn't have a great game. High and wide, of course. There was times I think in the second half where I counted a 20-minute period where I didn't see a touch from Declan Rice, high as the eight. And I think towards the end of the second half, he started to get a little bit more involved. But in general, it was pretty clear to me that our eights had a difficult time in this match. And then I think other people stepped up. You're looking at, for me, William Saliba was incredible. And we'll get into some individual performances, but he was incredible. And I think Thomas Partey had a very good game. And we'll get to a specific segment on him because there needs to be a conversation, a nuanced one, about his role and what he is right now and what we can expect. But in terms of Aston Villa, I mean, some new people to keep an eye on. I mean, I really think that they have a really good team. Morgan Rogers is somebody that I know.
What was his actual name?
His name was Morgan Rogers, not Morgan Sanders.
I was like, who's Morgan Sanders? Sanders.
He was brilliant, and he was making us run in midfield. And I do think that part of the Declan Rice idea about having him so high was actually to keep Onana deep in terms of how Emery would set up. Because I think in previous iterations, Onana had been tasked with kind of being a little bit more of a front-footed presser and putting us a little bit more in trouble. But with Yuri and Timber next to Thomas Partey, you've got two pivots, right, that can be brilliant on the half turn, can receive in a block, and can receive really in any area. And so if Onana was going to step up along with Morgan Rogers, then you basically have no one in midfield for Villa to cover transitions for, right? So I think as much as maybe Mikel used this to keep our spacing correct, I think that having Declan Rice kind of higher up was as much about keeping Onana deep as it was to make sure that Arsenal could be able to progress well. But I wanted to get your thoughts really quickly, I guess, overall in the match. Who struggled? Who was a winner? And then maybe we'll go through the specific moments, and we'll go from first half to second half.
I think the role of Timber was very nice because, look, in terms of actually defensively, how many times did we see Leon Bailey attack Arsenal in this game? How many times we hear his name being said? So it was very positive to go, look, I can look at my defence now and be comfortable on both sides and not be scared of whenever, the right winger gets the ball and you run towards a left back that we're in trouble. And that was nice to have the security there. On the ball, I saw some nice spots, some level of, he can receive the ball nicely. He's very assertive in his passing. But at the same time, I feel like there's more to come. I feel like he's still growing into the role. And let's not forget, look, he isn't a left back in the first place. Him playing as a left back is a new role for him because at Ajax, he was a centre back and a right back. So coming to a brand new league in his second ever start, after a year of signing for Arsenal, I think we were going to see more and more levels, but I think most importantly, the job was defensively. And in this game, he was perfectly fine there. And I was pretty pleased by the performance. Very excited as well, because I can see the signs of what he can do because of how, confident he is on the ball and how assertive he is as well. And I think also, in terms of maybe the biggest negative coming out of it in terms of the fan base, it was definitely Gabriel Martinelli. A lot of fan bases a lot of the fan base on his back, saying, "Look, we need some new left winger," and he's struggling. But at the same time, I just see a player that's lacking a bit of confidence. I'm not going to go over the top on him, and we talk about the arrival of Marino, Mikel Marino, not Moreno, and Calafiori as well, and even Yuri and Timber. The left hand side is going to be rejuvenated, so we'll see how he platforms there and how much of that stabilization can give him confidence going into the future and how it's going to impact him. But we've got two fantastic left wingers, and if one's not working out, as Mikel said, we've got one coming off the bench, and a lot of fans actually mentioned this as well. They actually feel like Trossard might be better coming off the bench at times. At times he's not suited to start the games because he's not got the paces Martinelli has, and you can't ask those questions going in behind. But when up against tired legs in the last 30 minutes where players have got a bit more to think about, he's perfect for those type of games. So he's good. He's a perfect, what's the word you use for a bench player? A finisher? He's a perfect finisher. Because he's got the ability to impact the game in the final 30 minutes. Whereas from the start, when, defenders have a bit more stamina and he can't run in behind as much, maybe he's not as effective. But yeah, great to see him come off the bench. But for Martinelli's sake, there's questions around his first team future right now, but it's fine. He's 22, 23 years of age, and he's still developing. But what did you make of Martinelli's performance, and do you think it was a bit over the top from the fan base?
Completely for me. I thought, look, Gabriel Martinelli, the final action was definitely something that you can't ignore. I mean, that was something that wasn't or hasn't been probably good for most of preseason as well, right? But I mean, some of the stuff that I saw in terms of what wasn't happening towards the back end of last season was these chances and was him impacting things. I mean, in the very first couple minutes, I think in the first 5 minutes, there's that huge Martinelli chance that everyone's bemoaning the pass back being a little bit behind Martin Odegaard after some brilliant play in our own half to play out, which is an incredible pass by Jurrien Timber, by the way, under pressure. That's what he gives us in build-up that I don't think very many people have in terms of having the awareness to slip a ball between 3 to 4 people, to have Kai Havertz just have a little bit of a layoff. And then Gabriel Martinelli is bursting, and you know what? That is the best of Gabriel Martinelli. And he did a lot of work in that move, not just in terms of being back, but to be an option for Jurrien Timber, and he created that transition. It wasn't a case of him being lucky to have that fall to him. Now, when he's on the break, I've seen a lot of people say he's hit that behind Martin Odegaard. I have more criticisms of Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka holding their run than I do of Gabriel Martinelli on the run. I mean, he's in space right now, and he's got an outside of the outside of the boot pass to do on the run between multiple players, and you're bemoaning the player arriving and not the pass. It seems a little strange to me because it wasn't a case of him passing into space. He had to pass between multiple lines of defenders. So I'm sitting there saying, okay, was it a little behind? Maybe. I think Martin Odegaard could have delayed his run. I think Bukayo Saka could have delayed his run a little bit. But okay, fine, we reset. Now we reset and we play, right? That gets kind of thrown out the window when we're talking about looking at him back post and Kai Havertz with that cross. Immediately he's in there and he's in the right positions. I just think that if you're going to get a player and you're talking about preseason, and let's remove the discourse about Martinelli, because sometimes as fans we look to see major changes to write a story. Who's going to be kicked out? We always look at the next replacement as fans, always. And I do feel if you were to describe a player broadly as, listen, he looks really bright. He's getting into a lot of chances. He's actually been involved in multiple areas of the pitch. He's helping us progress in deeper areas, and he's also being an outlet, an effective outlet. But there's just some little bit of decision making, and there's also some final action points that we're a little bit rusty on. If you describe that as an early preseason player, nobody would blink an eye. But it's because of the story that Gabriel Martinelli basically lost his spot to Trossard towards the back end of last season, and so people are tying together a story between multiple areas of a season to create almost a narrative about Gabriel Martinelli, in my opinion. I think he was more than fine. He was actually, if you're going to be fair, our most potent attacker in the first half. Absolutely. He was the one that was creating most of the chances, creating space, and actually attacking that Villa backline, because one thing that we weren't doing good enough is we had brilliant possession, but things were far too narrow, especially with Villa, who were sitting off and weren't pressing us as high. Last year, their wingers were high up on our kind of first center backs as well as our full backs, and they were making it very difficult for us to pass into the middle of the park. And I think what we found in that first half, personally, from watching, is William Saliba passes it back to Gabriel, who ignores the left-hand side completely, passes it back to Saliba, and we kept trying to rework the right-hand side. And that's not on Gabriel Martinelli. Okay, that's on us being able to find him a little bit more effectively. Declan wasn't having his best of games. In fact, I'd say Onana, and again, you know what, this whole Morgan Sanders thing is going to throw me if I keep making the jokes. So we're going to keep him Rodgers from now on. But Rodgers, but he was incredible. I mean, he had a very, very good game. He showed a lot of brilliant physical capacity. He's a very strong runner. I mean, for me, an upgrade on Douglas Luiz for them. And he had some issues, and it wasn't just, by the way, Thomas Partey. It was Declan Rice. I mean, he was an incredibly strong runner under contact. He was able to cause transitions on his own, and I felt like if you're having a left-hand side that's got very low touches, and at one point in the second half, having as little as no touches for almost 20 minutes, and then expecting the left-hand side to have equal amount of threat, that's not fair. Even if you feel that Gabriel Martinelli could individually do more, the fact that the left-hand side doesn't touch the ball. Declan Rice, our high 8, in that position, because Jurrien Timber's deep. There's no excuses right now, right? The high 8, and it's not Declan not showing, it's none of that, because there was many brilliant underlapping runs that I felt Declan wasn't found as well. That whole left-hand side lacks communication. They've played together maybe 3 games, maybe, in that specific role. So people expecting a cohesive kind of performance are being a little bit disingenuous. And then to wrap it all off, if you're looking at yourself and being honest, I don't know about you, but I thought Gabriel Martinelli was the most likely to do something. I think, Bukayo Saka is somebody that has started the season absolutely on fire. He's been brilliant. And I think that, he's always going to be our most valuable attacker. But if we constantly want to compare people to Bukayo Saka, then I think there's other people in this 11 that would have had a difficult time in that comparison. I don't think Kai Havertz was more effective than Gabriel Martinelli in terms of creating space, especially in the final third. I don't think Martin Odegaard, Declan Rice. There were other people in this team that I felt deserved more criticism for creating space and troubling that Villa back line, especially towards the first half and those first 20 minutes of the second half that I think Arsenal struggled in. So, yeah, for me, just to quickly round up the Martinelli discussion, there's things that he has to work on individually because you can't make excuses full stop. I mean, some of the final action points that we've been bemoaning, he can make quicker decisions, be more decisive in front of goal, and we've seen it. Those are things that he can work on individually. Absolutely. And it's part of the reason why I think Trossard has won back his place as of the kind of the back end of last season was a lot more decisive in those moments. And it's ironic. I use that word specifically because, again, Trossard was decisive in his goal, even in this match, which we'll talk about in the second half. But beyond that, Gabriel Martinelli has done a brilliant job about creating balance in that attack. There's very few players that are runners, that are effective runners in transition, and have been effective runners in our team. We have far too many ball to feet options in our collection of forwards. You look at Kai Havertz; he's potentially the only other runner you could say, but isn't in the same degree, isn't with the same threat. He doesn't have that same long running speed. He runs channels, but it's not from an explosion. It's from more smart, intelligent movement. And, you look at Bukayo Saka, ball to feet. Trossard, ball to feet. Jesus, ball to feet. Reece Nelson, ball to feet. That entire forward line, I mean, Eddie is potentially gone, so we won't talk about him. But another one, ball to feet. Like, there are so many players that we look to get involved with ball to feet, and we don't have enough effective runners, which is why people wanted to look at kind of potentially a transfer market move there. But really quickly, mate, I want to throw it back to you just to kind of switch topics. I do think we have to get into Thomas Partey in general as a topic because, look, there's a lot there. I'll simply ask you, what did you make of Thomas Partey's performance? And at what point can we as fans acknowledge there's a physical limit? That's not his fault. And that is potentially, well, not that it's not his fault, but rather he's old, he's had multiple injuries. We understand this. So at what point do we say, okay, that's who he is right now? What does he give you on the ball? And how can we separate the two? Because he's given us a unicorn position for a year. And I think it clouded people where it's not the same player. Oh my gosh, he's washed. We can't play him. We can't play him in certain games. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, I mean, look at this game. Look, Sky Sports had a man of the match, but for me, mate, he was incredible. He was incredible. Were there moments that he got transitioned on? Sure. But if you're going to be fair, Declan Rice was on his butt from
he was.
from Morgan Rogers quite a bit. Yeah, quite a bit. And a lot more than Thomas Partey. And so if he's going to give you this type of performance on the ball, then you make those concessions. I mean, that's the entire reason why we give Jorginho a platform and why he got a platform last season.
Exactly, that's the thing. I think he needs protection at this point, where we've seen Jorginho, a slower player, be put next to Declan Rice, who's a fantastic ball winner. And then it works out. And also we're adding the highest dual-winning midfielder in all of Europe last year as well, Mikel Merino. So there is definitely players there to help Partey platformed correctly. I also think we're not going to play Rodgers every single week either. because that was a very high quality performance of a ball carrier that not every team has. So fair play to Villa is a very good signing there. But also, so did Declan Rice is one of the best off the ball players in all of Europe, and even he struggled. So, but I think in terms of Thomas Partey's longer term concerns, you're right. There has to be acknowledgement that he has dropped in legs. It's not just a returning from injury and rhythm kind of thing issue anymore. He's actually has lost a few legs, and that's fair because he's getting older, and maybe also a bit of fear of injuries. He's had so many muscular problems in the past years. Remember that injury he had against Spurs, back in his first season, I think, when he was Spurs away, and he just kind of pulled up. And Mikel wanted him to keep going, and I think Harry Kane scored. And from that moment, I think you could tell, like, he's, maybe he's just trying to protect himself a little bit at this stage of his career as well. He's in his final year of his Arsenal contract. But that on the ball ability is something that we don't have in the squad. So you need that in your team, especially against mid blocks as well. Like in these type of games where you need to break the team down, that's a player that we can't replace. So it depends on certain game sets, but it's good to have the option. In some games where he might have to come off the bench, that's perfectly fine as well. But when you've got Declan Rice next to you, I'm always going to be confident that we can find something. And especially if it's not like a Rodgers type of performance, we've got enough players off the ball, enough quality behind him as well in Saliba and Gabriel to be trusted to play Partey in there. It's not the worst off the ball, but I saw the stats, saw the numbers that in terms of dribblers tackled, he's in the bottom 20% on the league, which is always a massive concern. But I think a lot of his protection. He's probably scared to get injured again, which is totally fair because he's had so many. And even Arsenal fans are always like, oh, he always gets injured. Maybe he's trying to prevent that at this point. But I love Partey for his on the ball ability, and that's why I'm still going to keep him in the side.
Yeah, I just think that he gave us so many options in terms of not even just receiving in terms of inside the block, but even in terms of the middle third and the final third. The purpose that he sends and the messaging on his passing is really special, and he gets us going. I think that there was a lot of interception moments that again I was really. Yeah, and he scored. He scored as well. A really brilliant goal. Kind of Thomas Partey special. We really do that a lot, where we work off corners to have kind of the right DM pop up in spots and have kind of a first time shot. Look, was it perfect? No, I'm not going to be disingenuous. I think again he's changed, but we have to accept that for me, and that's where the buck should stop, right?
Yeah.
You know,
You have to adapt. That's what it is. You got to be versatile around it, man. You can't have the same player, especially at his age right now as well, and
yeah.
how much he's got injured.
No.
There's gonna be a drop off.
And I always make this point to people. By the way, what he showed us in 22, 23 isn't normal. There shouldn't be a player that single-handedly can not only lead the build-up, but single-handedly defend transitions and have two eights higher up. Like that's not
It's quite a lot.
that's not something that you should do. I mean, look at Rodri at City. Probably the best ball progressor in Europe, right? Is he anywhere near Thomas Partey in terms of defensive ability in his prime? No. And Thomas Partey wasn't the same ball progressor as Rodri, but he was very close. And so when you're talking about kind of responsibility and you're talking about role, and we're talking about the team, this team that's got Yuri and Timber next to him, that's got Declan Rice on the side, that's got Saliba, that's got Gabriel. As far as protection goes, Arsenal are probably one of the best teams in the world. And if you're going to ask for a player that's going to struggle a little bit athletically, but yeah, I thought he was brilliant, mate. He really showed me a level that I haven't seen, honestly, since 22, 23 on the ball. And that has always been a question for me. I feel like even when Thomas Partey wasn't fit, I could rely on his legs, but I couldn't rely on his technical ability all the time. And that wasn't the case here. He took care of the ball brilliantly, and not even that, he actually took responsibility. It was a little bit more than that. It wasn't just him being a passenger in the game, which I felt like at times our eights really struggled in this game, personally. I really felt like our eights struggled to help us through. And look, Bukayo, I thought, had a really good game as well. That's another player who I think has started very, very differently and very interesting. This is a guy, for me, mate, that has come with a point to prove
He's
this
new, I'd
season.
say. It's a different Saka in my eyes.
Yeah, he has come. There was that point where obviously he's got the brilliant shot. He's pushing things in the first half. That back post cross that we talked about, the Gabriel Martinelli chance a little bit earlier on. He's involved in that. In terms of even in the second half, he does a challenge on a Villa player. I forget who it was. It could have been Lucas Digne, but then he goes to rile up the crowd later on in the second half to get them going, and it's right in the Arsenal away end. And this is just a boy, mate. I said this on Twitter. It's not normal because he has come back after losing out on the finals in the Euros. Okay, he's coming back incredibly late. How many people that have come back from the Euros, full stop, have shown this level of intensity and readiness? And you're looking at Declan Rice as a perfect comparison, an older who person who, by all accounts, has been praised for his professionalism. So it's not just professionalism, right? Because, for me, Declan's probably one of the most professional players that you can have in the game, period. Everybody talks about his mentality, his commitment to training. This isn't a case of having one player who was just running on vacation and another wasn't. Like, it wasn't that. There is a level of a mental, I want to be the guy. I want to push on, and I no longer want to be considered as just very good. I'm not satisfied with that. I'm satisfied with being the one to demand you to win. And if you don't want to win, I will drag you with me. And that point for me is incredibly important. That's what's different for me with Saka. Are there small technical things that I've noticed? Yes, I think that we're attacking the back post with Saka a little bit more. I think that, this team is asking him to kind of play on the last line a little bit more than last season. But those are small. For me, that mentality change, when he gets the ball, he is purposeful. There's even that one chance in the first half when he tests Emi Martinez, who has a brilliant save, when he kind of receives it from a really smart reverse pass from Martin Odegaard in the box. And the snapshot is, I don't know, it's strong, it's in the right space. Emi Martinez just makes a brilliant save. But then the camera pans to Saka, and he goes, there's no, oh my God, I've missed a big chance. It's like, okay, what's next? Next play. And he's ready to go again. It's just this ruthless killer mentality that I'm seeing starting to blossom right now in Bukayo Saka. And I think he's got a season to make us, or remind Arsenal fans how good he is. And I know that sounds crazy to say, but I don't think he gets the praise that he deserves even in our own fan base, mate. Talking about player of the season, you're talking about what he is and what he's able to do. Again, I ask you, name a player that you can even do it above Arsenal, who has come back more ready than Bukayo Saka after having gone so late in the Euros. You struggle.
In the final, he started every single game at the Euros, made it always to the final, and obviously, I think he played most of the games last season, if not every game as well. So, he's a machine. He's an absolute machine, and that's why it's always very interesting when we talk about, right wing replacements or backups.
Yeah.
Who would you sign, and who would be willing to sit behind a player who's, thank God, always fit, always available, and always firing? Maybe for the odd 20 games after the game's basically finished, maybe you bring him on, but Saka's just so reliable that you can't. And so, in terms of what I see now post, Euro 2024, I see a different level of arrogance and nonchalance in this game to go like, I've always been told I'm that guy, but now I think I'm that guy, and I'm playing like him as well. And that's what I see as responsibility. And we saw it in that goal against Wolves in the first game of the season, where often you might see a wide overlap start make a bit of space, or Havertz make a little move to make space up as well. That was just pure Saka. He was like, I see the ball, I see the gong, I'm going to go and smash it in. It was inevitable, and it reminds me a bit of Iron Robin when he cuts inside. And he's getting to that stage now where we see that goal time and time again. And when we see it in the Euros, was a quarter-final against Switzerland, where, England just conceded a goal and it's all pressure on England now. He picks the ball up as one of the star players, goes, give me the ball, I'm going to make this happen. And that's what I see now as a player who knows he's that guy. And it's different. There's a different level of arrogance, and you need that to be world-class. You need that to be in the PFA conversations. And I think this is the year where fans realise that more than ever, because, Martin Odegaard gets so much praise for what he is. I always think it kind of, takes away from Saka a little bit. And I want to see him this year be that guy where when it comes to PFA conversations, and if Arsenal win the league as well, hopefully, then Saka's the player we put forwards, because I think he's maybe our most important and most reliable as well. And he's been the guy for our journey as well, the whole time, from all the way back in 1920 or 2021, playing as a left back, then coming through and becoming one of the best right wingers. He deserves the flowers, and I think this is the year he's going to get them.
No, absolutely. And I think that if I'm looking towards, we'll probably end on kind of the second half and talk a little bit about that, especially kind of the breakdown in the first 20 minutes. Just to round out kind of the first half, I think, look, Arsenal did well. I think the only time that we really got troubled in that first half exchange was, do you remember the time when kind of, not Sanders, but Morgan Rogers, oh God, it's such an old joke. When he kind of bursts through the middle of the park and he kind of almost solo runs. He goes past Declan Rice, and in the end, it's kind of a simple Raya save. But he kind of ran through our team single-handedly, and I feel like that was probably one of the only real times, bar the obvious Ollie Watkins chance, right? And that comes from a simple mistake, I think, from Gabriel Magalhaes, who needs to get rid of it. I don't think there's major analysis that's involved there. It's just he was a little slow. That's another player that I felt like started slow in the match, and then slowly started to gain a little bit more kind of confidence and a little bit more composure, I would say. Like, I think in general, the team, bar Saliba in that back line, who was our best, and even Ben White, who had really good moments. I thought Gabriel and even Yuri and Timber needed to play a little bit more to get a little bit more confidence in terms of what they were going to be doing with the ball. But beyond that, we walk into the second half and it's undeniable Villa had a really good pressure, really good period of about, I'd say, 20 minutes where Villa were quite dominant. And they were quite dominant in terms of being able to test us. Raya makes a world-class save in terms of the rebound. I think like the initial ball off the bar is a little bit of a misjudgment, but the reaction and the reflexes to get up so quickly and parry the ball, not just a little bit into the path of Leon Bailey, who's following up like every smart forward should do, but he gets a strong hand to deal with that cross. It's brilliant. It's world class. And you need your keeper to step up in moments. Raya had a brilliant save as well against Wolves. And, for somebody that hasn't done too much in games, I think he's another one that has started really, really strongly. But what did you make of that first opening, I'd say, 20 minutes in which Arsenal really kind of struggled in terms of territory? I still would argue, if you watch back, we really didn't concede very many shots in that period. For as much as people want to say it was a worrying period.
You really do, man.
We don't, especially when you look back at it. But yeah, what did you make of kind of the first 20 minutes after the second half?
It's to be expected. When you go to Villa Park in the first game of the season against a side that's in the Champions League, they're going to have a period of dominance. They have to, That's just how football is. And this is a side that, let's not forget, last year when City went to Villa Park, absolutely dominated them. Possession-wise, chances-wise, and we've seen them do it at times. So to concede a little bit of territory at one point in the game is no major concern whatsoever. They had a few chances, a great save from David Raya that might go down as the save of the season. And I find it very intriguing that he was voted as the PFA Goalkeeper of the Year because it's voted by his peers, in the rest of the league. So at what point does the rest of the league realise, okay, this guy actually is one of the best goalkeepers in the league? I think that was very nice to see as well. And so he's getting his flowers. He finds that they're accepting him more and more, and that whole Ramsdale debate is completely over. Let's not forget, at one stage last year, this time last year, was like, oh, Raya's coming to the side. Does he deserve to be in the side? Ramsdale's a guy. We don't want to see him go out there. Now it's over. And I love that he's been put to bed as well. But, I don't think I was majorly concerned. And I thought also it's nice to have those games where it's not all perfect. Villa have had chances. We've had a bit of luck. We made a few good saves, but we're then able to go to the final third and just pull a goal out of nowhere. Provide a moment. These were two world-class moments in this game: the Trossard goal and the Raya save. And those are things that we're going to need more of this season. If you're going to go far in the Champions League, if you're going to win a Premier League title, you need those moments. Because you've seen games from Man City where they can have a poor game and they can concede a lot of chances, but they'll go and take the chances, and people will go, oh, that's a sign of champions. Arsenal needs to do more of that as well. And, I think Mikel Arteta must have seen it with Trossard off the bench and then David Raya from that save as well.
Look, I kind of noticed this point for me. You know what I love, mate, is we showed an ability to be weak and respond. I think far too many times last season, what happened was, even at Porto or Bayern, when things weren't going well, did you ever trust Arsenal in the final 20 minutes to just turn the screw?
Yes, that is, man. If it's not perfect, that's what it is. You don't know if you're going to score.
Yeah, and so that was the thing. Like, I thought the story of last season was I didn't trust Arsenal to turn it up a level. Okay, whenever they went down, I felt like, okay, I'm searching for Mikel to make subs. I'm searching for something, and not often enough did I trust the team to, in a poor moment, create superiority. You know what I mean? Like, You see that far too often with City, where it's like, okay, they score. Everyone's like, oh, great, somebody scored. They get an issue, maybe a card, maybe somebody gets injured. Fans celebrate, and then in the end, Man City become the robots that they are, and they score, and they end up winning the game. That's inevitable. I don't think Arsenal had that inevitability to turn poor situations into a period of dominance. And this is what I saw in this game. So, look, we struggled. We had to sit in. We had to sit in our block. We had to defend. Guys, no problem. Let's play in the dirt. I love that the team showed that, and they did. They played in the dirt. Then you know what? They dusted themselves off, and they took themselves out to a nice dinner afterwards. And they calmly did it, and they did it by cruising to a 2-0 win. And that, for me, was
Very good evening.
Very good evening. And I think that was really the most important thing for me, at least when I was looking at that second half and the story that I took away, because we're going to need to do this. And we're not going to be constantly on top. We're not going to be somebody that from period 1 to 90 is going to have utter domination for as much as we want that field tilt. There's going to be times when that field tilt isn't in our favor, and I think we showed a really good ability to respond.
We still won. We still won field tilt. Whopping
Still did.
63%. So that still comes. We still get extra point for that, hopefully. But I also feel like you can't analyze this game without the context from last season. This is a side to do the double over us, the only side to do that. And they stopped us winning a title. So there was a lot of pressure going into this game because the players going, these guys have caught us last year. Both put in 2 good performances. The Emirates and Villa Park had a lot of chances and missed them. We've got to be careful with. And it's the first game of Villa Park as well. So there's a lot of context behind that. But to then go over and get the victory as well, it's a very good sign. And if we weren't fighting Man City for a title, a lot of people would have looked at that game and gone, that's the game that Arsenal won the title. Because to go and do that, it's a serious side. And we've gone and done that. Because I don't think any other side apart from City can go and do that at this stage of the season.
Yeah, and mate, you know what? I just want to end on that has carried over from last season. So we've a lesson that maybe we've added to our bow, but something that has carried it. I want to talk Leo Trossard, mate. There are uncomfortable conversations for me to have about this boy. People get upset when I say that. This man.
Uncomfortable conversations. What's the uncomfortable conversations?
Look, at what point can we stop saying, oh, you know what? Leandro Trossard is just a brilliant squad player. And can we just stop caveating that and say he's just a brilliant player? Like, can we stop the caveats with it? If you actually looked back at, Leandro Trossard, not only was he our most efficient box presence last year, he arguably, I think only Bukayo Saka in the squad was somebody that won Arsenal more points. All of Leandro Trossard's goals, not only did he have a really good output, which everybody could see, but those goals and assists that he did last season were decisive. They were either swinging game states to us drawing or putting us in winning positions. What does he do? Yet again, after a period where Arsenal arguably had a much better first half, should have scored, didn't capitalize. Then enter a period of 20 minutes of hurt where we have to dig in. We're not on top. We're looking for inspiration. What does he do? Once again, Leandro Trossard pulls up with a decisive goal. And he puts us in a winning position state again. Look, Partey seals off the win a little bit later, but Trossard once again does it. He does it with consistency. He does it with incredible defensive work rate. He does it with an incredible kind of compassion towards the ball. He doesn't lose it. He constantly sticks his head down. And look, we've had debates a little bit earlier in the pod. Is he better coming off the bench or starting? Fundamentally for me, regardless of whether that's the case, which shouldn't be an issue from a squad perspective, I'm talking from a personal player perspective. When you keep creating goals and assists with that level of decisiveness, and then you still get comments, unfortunately, this season that people were willing to let him go. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, mate, he is our most efficient box player that we have currently in the squad. In terms of inevitability, he is probably the closest thing that we have to inevitable. Have a look at his minutes and his goal and assist numbers. Have a look at his ratio of available minutes to impact. It's huge.
13 non-penalty goals at the start of last season. That was the same as Cole Palmer prior to the game against they had against Wolves.
Well, there you go. And
12 less starts.
And so at what point do you think that Leandro Trossard gets his flowers? I know the squad does. I know the squad look at him, and I don't even think he's just a 12th man anymore. He consistently is one of the starters. And, I mean, it's a debate because we're starting to have really good players, but Trossard is putting up the goods, mate, and he's putting up the goods not just in throwaway matches, in key decisive moments, and stepping up. He's an example of having an experienced head that is adding to this team. And we don't have too many of that. And in the past, Arsenal have lacked that. Experienced players really giving you something in the squad. That's been a big issue for us. And I think in this year, you're looking at your Jorginhos, you're looking at your Trossards, Kai Havertz and Martin Odegaard have to step into this role of experienced players. And they have to guide this young squad. They have to guide this young team. And they have to start basically being decisive, being the guys that the squad can rely upon. And I'm just wondering, consistently, Trossard, what do you make of him, his performance, and what do you make of him as a player in terms of his future with the squad?
No, he's here to stay for sure. I never quite get the idea of cashing on him because how much do you get for Trossard in the market, and how much is he worth to your
15,
current
25
side?
million.
You know, he's worth a lot more than that because if you sold Trossard, you couldn't go sign a player for 15, 20 million pounds that could impact your side as much as him and score as many important goals. He's a very important profile to have, especially in the Champions League as well when we go into that later in the season. The goals he's going to score are going to be very important as well. And he's very clinical. You know, that goal he scored, if I was to watch that goal back and I was able to hide the player and just see the goal and the way it hit the back of the net and the way it was finished, I'd go Trossard straight away because he's the only player in our squad that is as clinical as that. So why would I want to lose that? So I never quite got the argument in the first place. And in terms of him, you know, being in the role in our squad, yeah, he's more than a 12th man at this point because he starts so many games and he's exactly what you want in a player coming into the side where he's not guaranteed to play straight away, but he's going to earn a spot and he can impact both off the bench and you know when he starts games as well. And was it 19 goals last year? You can't disregard that whatsoever. And so the fact that he's been on the bench this year, I really feel like that celebration he put in once he scored the goal was like a message to Mikel Arteta. Like, you know, I scored 19 goals for you last year. I had a very strong preseason as well, you know, but I have not been starting. Why is that? Why am I not starting? I deserve to start. And I think he talked about, you know, I'm not sure if you've seen a clip of Saliba maybe asking him to do a celebration. He didn't want to do it. He wanted to, you know, just kind of walk off with it, but obviously did it at the end of it because he wants to send a statement, and that's how it should be. We've got a squad full of competitive animals. None of them that they believe they deserve to be on the bench. They're not bench warmers. These are players that want to be starting for Arsenal Football Club, and that's exactly what I want to see. So I like the fact that he was able to send a message to Mikel Arteta for a celebration, and it's not just all smiles and happy. I'm happy to come off the bench. No, I want to be starting, and I want my role in the team as well.
Absolutely. And you know what? I think just to kind of round out the game in general, again, I loved that Arsenal showed an ability to respond. They showed an ability to get punched in the chin and not go down. It wasn't a knockdown. It was, I'll stare you right back and I'll walk down that challenge. And I loved that. Yeah, and one player who, for me at least, really exemplified that was Gabriel Magalhaes, who we talked about earlier in the pod. I thought had a really tough first half, a really tough moment. We all saw it. But then, mate, if you look back at the Partey goal, that's all Gabriel Magalhaes' pass from deep, going over the top to find Trossard, who then fires a brilliant cross, a kind of low driven cross across the face of the goal. But then, you know, of course, we work it back so Partey can have a first-time shot. But that move starts because we've worked Villa in terms of moving them side to side, and Gabriel Magalhaes is brave enough to find a ball over the top with, by the way, it's not even just bravery, but with some really good precision. And he was a player that grew in the game. So for me, that was maybe most improved in the game, and that's what we need. He's one of our most potent players from deep in terms of getting Arsenal going. And if you notice, Gabriel Magalhaes does this a lot, and he doesn't get the credit for it because maybe he's not as aesthetically pleasing as William Saliba is on the ball. But go back, look at tough moments that Arsenal are potentially under the cosh, and they need some inspiration. Gabriel Magalhaes is somebody that consistently pushes you between the lines, consistently tries to find a more expansive ball to get us going and be a little bit more direct when we need to be. So really good job for him. All in all, mate, I'll end on this 2-0 win at Villa Park. Not many people are going to say that this season. And what ended up being fairly comfortable, a 20-minute period that people will say under the cosh, but really resulted in maybe one or two shots on target, which for me isn't as worrisome as what people will say. And I'm going to look at it and think, okay, you know what? As a whole, our superstar eights in midfield struggled, and we were still able to carry this performance. That's positive for me.
Yeah, something we didn't see last season. So, yeah, it was a good performance. It was a good result. But will we have a good transfer window ending? Deadline days on Friday, George.
Look how excited he gets with this at this point. He's like, enough! Finally, we're here.
There's a lot happening. Fabio Vieira, first things first. Porto, here we go. He's got the number 10 shirt. I actually love the fact that we got a clause in there for his deal, which says that if he doesn't play at least 50% of their games, that there's a penalty clause they have to pay in Porto. So I love the fact that that's an incentive for them to start him. And in fact, they've given him the number 10 shirt. Like, he will be playing games there. And I think it's good for him to go back to Portugal, to return home for a bit, to get some minutes again as a player.
And
no obligation to buy. And
I think the loan fee as well, but the fee was based on performance incentives. It's just a really creative approach. I think Garlic doesn't get I don't think Garlic gets the praise for some of those because he has the sell-on feature, which everyone has been a big topic of in kind of this transfer window.
Yeah,
but
Patino as well.
But yeah, and I mean he's done that a lot, but he's also worked ways to kind of incentivize people. I think we need to start structuring our loans in that way. And by the way, to be fair, I want to mention somebody because I'm such a nerd. Sam Hayball is our new loan manager. I think he's going to have to deserve that praise for as much as Edu and Garlic get praise themselves, because that's a really smart way to look at loans. I believe that we should adopt this approach kind of even with our youngsters. You pay a loan fee based on how well they do. And if they don't play, we have a recall clause and a penalty in January. I think that's
Yeah,
just really
it's a
smart
win-win.
business, you know?
Yeah, so it's a very good move for Fabio Vieira. But in terms of him going though, do you think the move back to Portugal was wise though? You know, in terms of especially like the fact they've put no option to buy means that Mikel still sees him as a part of the first team future. So I get the fact that he needs minutes, and to go to a team that he's been in before where he doesn't need to adapt to is perfect. But maybe could he have got a move to a side in the Premier League instead, or a league closer to the Premier League, or do you think Portugal is exactly where he needed to go?
It's a tough one, mate, because I mean, look, people are going to say, I wish he would have gone to the championship or to a league that would develop him physically. But really, for me, he needs to get his confidence back and remember the
Yeah,
player that he was. That's more important to me than it is the physical, because I think that he's shown, at least for me, an ability to physically compete. But part of the problem is he's second guessing himself. He's not got that confidence in his ability that he did when he walked in. And in terms of the first shot was a goal against Brentford, if people remember. I mean, he's got to remind himself of his talent just as much as we need a reminder of his talent as Arsenal fans. So really, I love the Porto move. I think he'll be playing Champions League football. He'll be
yeah,
important. He'll be going to a team and a club that is his boyhood club. In terms of comfortability, you don't get much more comfortable than that. And by the way, it's to a team that I don't know if they've actually sealed it, but it's looking to get Omar from Atletico Madrid, who Chelsea were after, and I think that partnership could prove deadly. I really think that Fabio Vieira knocks up the output. He's in a league and in a team that he really confirms, and he kind of takes his career back on track. And then he comes back to Arsenal saying, no, I found myself and I found my voice again. I'm ready to start giving you questions. And I'm hoping that's
yeah.
what we get. And if he doesn't, I think this loan is brilliant because we've covered our bases financially. We've given him the best opportunity to succeed. And if he doesn't, you move on. It's not a big
Yeah,
deal.
there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong
But
with that.
I
And
will
also,
I will add though,
go on.
mate, the way that we took him out, it was kind of a surprise to me. I mean, if you want to transition into forward talk, Vieira wasn't somebody that was marketed as a potential out by the club or even
No,
by
no,
fans.
no.
So I think
Yeah,
when you
a
start
lot of stuff
looking
happens
at
behind
it,
the scenes.
100%, and you start to look at it right, and you go, okay, Eddie Nketiah moved on to Palace for £30 million, brilliant
Here
deal,
we
by
go,
the way.
guys. Here we go.
And I don't think we get talked about enough. I mean, people lost their minds that the Forest move collapsed, and I just sat there and thought to myself, oh no, I don't think this is Arsenal's fault. This is 100% Eddie. I knew Palace was involved, and look, we end up having the same deal that
And
we
he got a
had
much
with
better move
Forest.
as well, by the way. Staying in London, going to a better side, is a lot more Premier League secure as well. Fair play to the boy.
Why wouldn't Eddie want to do that? I was boggled in my mind why people weren't understanding of the fact that Eddie didn't want to move to Forest and he would prefer to move to Palace. I think this is part of the PTSD of fans, though. Like
Oh,
it
it's a lot of
was,
PTSD.
yeah, it was completely with that. We ended up getting a brilliant fee, £30 million. Look, for me, I still think that's low on the player in isolation. I will maintain. I think Palace have got a steal. I think he's easily a 35 to 40 million pound asset, but the market's the market. So Arsenal end up getting a good deal. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's great, but it's a good deal. And that now takes our spending, mate, I think, if you really want to talk about it, because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But right now, £87 million that we've generated. We've got, of course, Emile Smith Rowe, £34 million all in. Eddie Nketiah, £30 million all in. Nuno Tavares, 7.5 million with a loan to obligation. Sell-on clauses between Amari and Mark McGuinness have generated £5 million pure profit. In terms of Mika Bireth, £4 million. Brooke Norton-Cuffy,
Saka
£3 million to
Lokonga.
Genoa. Lukunga loan, £2.5 million.
And you
Patino.
still got Ramsdale to come as well.
There are things moving, and I'll throw it back to you. So you're now looking at. I don't know if I can do the math in my head really quickly to give everybody an idea, but you've got £64 million plus about five, which is 69 for Amari and Mark McGuinness. Add another three, we basically get 72 for Brooke Norton Cuffy. Add another four for Mika Bireth to be 76, plus Charlie Patino, £77 million of the 87 million pounds that we have worked to sell have been pure profit on the
It's
books.
fantastic.
It's fantastic from an Arsenal perspective, who have demanded an improvement in selling. But I'm going to throw it back to you. You've now lost Eddie Nketiah. You've generated 77 million pounds in pure profit. You've got Fabio Vieira out on loan. Tell me 5 reasons why Arsenal signed a forward. And don't give me, it's not what I'm seeing in links. Like, what do you make of this? I mean, I'd find it negligent at this point.
No. Now it's guaranteed in my eyes. It's 100% guaranteed. The forward's coming.
Yeah.
And I don't even need 5 reasons. Just one reason. Vieira's gone. And when Vieira's gone, I'm thinking we knew Eddie was going to leave at the start of the season, at the start of the window. Likewise, Emil Smith Rowe. These are players that we knew expected to go. When you lose a player on loan to someone that you didn't expect to lose, I think it's first things first, confidence in Ethan as well. To trust Ethan to play in the role of Martin at times as well, which is fantastic. We've always wanted to see youngsters get platformed. But also, it's like a sign we're definitely going to get a forward, and it's just a matter of who now. And is it going to be maybe a future star type of signing where, in the mold of Kivior, where he's not really like an instant first teamer, but someone to help us, in the long term, or is it maybe a long term or short term loan or a Trossard type of signing instead? So I think a forward's guaranteed at this point, and that's why it's very exciting to see. It's just a matter of who that opportunity is going to be. We've seen rumours, and this is what I kind of find surprising is Osimhen and the rumours are going to Saudi Arabia. That was very surprising because £65 million is the fee. Apparently, he's rejected that. But it gets to the point of where
not Napoli.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's rejected. So if they've accepted a fee of that amount, my question then becomes: why have other clubs not made a move? Not even just Arsenal, even Chelsea. It seems to be a persistence to loan him instead. Maybe a club's trying to negotiate the fee now, last minute. We'll see.
I don't know if it's fair. I think they have, and he is rejecting it. And I mean, PSG.
Or even Chelsea.
Yeah, because I mean, why I've said this consistently with Osimhen. Why would he go to a club that's not in the Champions League? Mm-hmm. Why would he do that? What is the benefit? League. Yeah, that's really great for his career. But beyond
the UCL.
Beyond the train wreck, I think of the soft factors of Chelsea, because that's just me being a supposed spoiled Arsenal fan. But look at the facts. Why would he, who signed a contract for £100 million, go off to a club that's not in the Champions League? And then you look at PSG. Why would PSG recruit another player on £100 million total package? Even if it's £65 million, his wages are at least 300, maybe 250k a week. I think he's on right now 290 post-tax in Napoli. So it's by the way, that's the same package that we bought Havertz for last year. And I'm going to ask you, are you uncomfortable with spending Havertz money in package for Victor Osimhen?
No, I'm very comfortable with that. I just think at this point in the window, the rumours are pointing towards more of a winger. So I would love Osimhen at Arsenal at this stage of the window. I think it would complete our team, honestly. Yeah. But so far, we're going off nothing right now. And maybe it's a surprise out of nowhere. And I hope so. It would be a massive surprise. And also done it in the past in deadline day as well. We've made some very big signings. But I'm very intrigued to see who we're going to sign. I still feel, gut feeling is we'll go for a short-term loan instead. But if it was Osimhen, I'd be over the moon.
Yeah, mate. I look at it and I look at this and I say, look, I don't know what we'll do. I've made it clear who I want. I've made it clear since June. And I think when you start to look at it, the one thing that I'm happy about is we've cleared our deck. We don't have to work. In the last 3 days from now, we don't need things to go our way. It's us in the driver's seat deciding what we want to do, right? We don't have to wait for space. We've taken out the players. If Aaron Ramsdale moves, we have a signing lined up. I think it's very purposeful. And I don't think Arsenal are rushed. If Aaron doesn't go, Arsenal aren't going to be upset. We have a brilliant goalkeeper here. We want to do it from a compassion standpoint, personally. But from an Arsenal sporting standpoint, can you make the argument that Aaron at number 2 is a bad situation? I can't. He's under contract. He's homegrown. He's here. He's got a long contract. He plays. If he moves and we get a deal, then no problem. We replace that. But, I mean, we've already got that deal lined up. So there's nothing from my perspective that Arsenal need to go right in order to sign something right now, right? Like, I was told all year, okay, it's one in, one out. I still think, like, legally, financially, there was no reason for that. But sure, it's good business. Okay, I can understand that. Well, now you've got your players out. Now we've actually physically got a deficit. And with the Gabriel Jesus injury, I don't think Arsenal operate this way, but maybe it forced fans, because my big criticism is I've gone online and the narrative I've got is, okay, people want a forward, but they were starting to make excuses that Calafiore and Marino was an okay window. And that was before Fabio Vieira and Eddie had gone. Even if Eddie had gone, I was seeing people saying, yeah, well, you know what, Arsenal, it seems like the narrative is they want a winger, but if they don't do it, it's really difficult to do. And I started saying to myself, hold on, why are we not demanding a signing right now? I, I mean, I can understand that you're taking links and we're trying to aggregate them to get the best opinion about what Arsenal have. But when you're approaching this league, should you not be demanding an addition at this point? I mean, and then it took Mikel to physically say it in the press conference for now people to say, oh, no, we're definitely short. I mean, come on, guys. Like, we are going for the title. You can't have that standard and then sit there and think, okay, you know what? The club have told me all summer we needed X factor, box efficiency. We needed something in the last couple months to really take us over the line, and then not be okay with any addition. Again, it doesn't have to be Osimhen. It doesn't have to be your favorite name. But the idea that Arsenal did nothing this transfer window in the forward department, and now even more so after getting rid of Vieira, for me, that signals something is coming in. You don't get rid of a Vieira like that, especially on a dry loan.
Something's in the works.
Yeah, if something's not in the works, I
Something's
think
cooking. It is cooking on the barbecue.
100%.
He's got the barbecue cooking.
And I know that, like, as of time of recording, I don't know when this will go out, but I'm sure we'll get a Mikel Merino. Here we go today.
Yeah.
So
well, here we go. It's already out, so it's about an announcement at this point.
Sorry, yeah. Well, the announcement, you're right. It is already here. So from an Arsenal perspective, I'd love to ask you, can you see or can you give the club a reason not to do something? Like, would you say squad space makes sense? Wages? Like, I'm trying to look at it from a really fair perspective here. If we don't do it and we get a worst case scenario where we don't get a forward, how would you respond? If we got a loaned forward, can you give me an idea of a good and bad loan? Mm-hmm. Because I think, look, if it's Victor Osimhen, it's an easy convo. Everyone's celebrating. If it's that level of signing, right? But for you, can you give me a good, bad, and great end to the window in your eyes and what your evaluation is?
The great one is there. The great one is signing that striker. That striker that every fan's wanted for a long time and addressing the thing that we need the most, which is the box efficiency. And Mikel said time and time again. So that would be the great one as Osimhen. Or Gyökeres or someone like that. Someone of that ilk, we go and sign and it's a great deal there and then. It competes our team, A good deal for me is like a short-term loan with no massive obligation to buy, no massive financial commitments. Maybe Kingsley Coman, someone to rely upon off the bench, give us some pace, and give us a profile that we need as well, who fits our team very nicely in my eyes. And the bad is signing no one. At this point, I think anyone else will do sign. There'll be a reason behind that. There'll be enough reasons behind signing him. Either it's a short-term loan or a long-term signing as well. Whether it's even at this point, if it's a Sterling, there's still enough reasons to go and sign him. With Vieira going, then not. If it's a short-term deal. So I feel like that's the case there, and I feel like forward's guaranteed. So I think, George, if I was to ask you now a forward that you think Arsenal will sign, just a short-term loan signing, because Osimhen's the main one we want to sign. But if it's not him, who would you go for personally? If you were in charge, if you were like Edu Gaspar tomorrow, who are you contacting first? Is it Sanders?
Yes, it's Sanders. The KFC owner. It's difficult for me, mate. Like Kingsley Coman is the best option on the market, quality-wise.
Yeah.
I struggle with his wages, and I struggle on a moral aspect, if I'm really being fair, in terms of everything that's going on around him. But if we're talking quality and we're keeping it football, Kingsley Coman, it's without a doubt. And you could even argue that's the best option, period. If you're looking for a winger who is world-class, able to operate both sides and create that separation. Like if we could buy a young Kingsley Coman, people would be ecstatic. And one that was available, that's the perfect player. That's what you're looking for in this team. But there's obvious questions. There's the availability question. There's the potential moral question. There's the fee question. So whatever we do at this point isn't going to be a silver bullet that addresses everything. I'm going to buy somebody that's flawed. I think fans just need to accept that. Like if you're talking about a loan signing right now, you're buying a flawed option. I don't like the Sterling thing that's being floated around by people. I think that's people getting a little bit desperate for me in terms of getting a signing and not seeing how that works within our team. The only thing with also Kingsley Coman that people don't mention is I don't know how he works out of possession in this side in terms of what we demand with our wingers as well. You'd be asking him to do something that he hasn't shown all his career. So I'm struggling and I don't want to give you the answer that you think I will. I really don't see a reason for me or a better option than a certain Nigerian that's on the market. I don't see a better
Look, man.
fit, a better, yes, exactly. But yeah, I think that's the best option. I like Asana Diao, which we did a scouted on plug. I really like him, but again, another prospect, and I don't think that he solves the demand of the season, which is going to be output. We're going to judge people this season and Arsenal this season on winning the league. And I'm just going to end on that. I think that's going to be the judgment from fans, from the media, from the club. You must win the league, right? Last year was, oh, the performance was great. We really gave it a good go. We put it to the last game of the season, right? People were talking performance and how we got there last season, but they weren't saying title, title, title. I don't know if that's the case this year, mate. And I think you need to paint that picture whenever you start talking signing. If you're not saying title, 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 then I don't think that you can be happy. Calafiori, does that help you win the title? It does. Not just in terms of ceiling, in the moment. He gives us a certain level of quality that he steps in and is a starter. Mikel Merino, is that a title signing? It's not somebody that's going to change your life, but 100% one of the best La Liga midfielders in the last couple of years. He walks in and is a starter and helps solve things that we don't have in the squad. Title. Forward signing. Who do you pick that can do that? That's going to be a debate. I don't know if you're a fan of like the Madueke and some of the other ones that I'm seeing. I'm seeing a lot of I take at this point in the window. And I struggle with that demand, mate. I really struggle with that demand because for me, if you're saying I take it now, it's because you wouldn't have taken it to start previously.
Yeah.
And I agree with the idea we have to do something. But if my demand is title, my demand is that elusive beating Pep, I need to demand a signing that can do that for me. And if it doesn't, it's not that I don't think Arsenal will win the league. It's not that I think that Arsenal are doomed. All I will say is I don't think Arsenal have given their best chance to win. I don't think that we've given this team the best chance to win. And I think that we could still win the title, but I'd be a lot more doubtful. And I'd be saying Arsenal can win the league. Whereas if I got like a Victor Osimhen, I'd say, no, Arsenal will win the league. No matter what City do at this point, I believe Arsenal will win the league. And that confidence to go from challenging to title favorites has been my goal this summer and been something that I keep repeating on podcasts. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens, George. We have got a few days left, so hopefully we do get a forward in. I think we will. So we'll see. So George, tell them what we have coming up on the Can podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a brilliant new pod. I'm really excited for you guys to release. We had a awesome talk with the brilliant Pythagoras and Boots. I'm not sure if people will have seen some of his videos, but expect that to come. It's going to be a breakdown all on Arsenal. So we're talking kind of the tactics, what Arsenal have evolved into, our strengths, our weaknesses, our best lineups. And then, of course, for our lovely free members on YouTube, which we don't also forget, we're going to have a small clip that's going to release that's going to talk about Mikel Arteta as a manager, his strengths, weaknesses, and what we can expect in terms of his ceiling moving forward. So we can have that coming up. And, of course, we've got your wonderful live show, which I think we'll see if we can coordinate maybe another video on the deadline day if there's enough. Maybe you guys in the comments, comment down below if you'd like to see a video of
the
some
stream
sort
itself.
Deadline
is on Friday, so hopefully I get it out on Friday. But if things are happening, then we might have to do it on Sunday instead and review the window instead. So there'll be a stream this week for sure. So look forward to that as well. And things are happening at the kind of podcast. So hopefully we have some signings to discuss and some scouting reports on a new signing. So George, thank you as always, and give us the outro, mate.
Thanks, guys. And, make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. We really love all the support that we've been getting lately, and this is only the start. We can't wait to kick on this season. And as Arsenal win the league, we hope that Cannon Podcast will reach new heights. So thank you so much. We appreciate it. And we will catch you guys probably the next one in terms of the Pythagoras and Boots, or as Bhavs said, kind of later in the week. We'll make sure that you guys hear that announcement. But thanks, guys, for sticking with us. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal.
Peace.